friends, Bill here. Hope you're having a good week. We're having a good one here at SFOI. Had a good weekend this weekend in Atlanta. Alex Bird led a team of 8 folks, and I think Mark Yoho joined him and some other people preaching at the College Football Championship. Even though it was cold out there, the thing about weather is fans will be there. If we're not there, that doesn't keep fans from being there. The weather doesn't keep fans from going these games. So, although it was cold, Alex and the guys stayed out there and preached the gospel to lots of people and had a fruitful time. This weekend, I think about 5 of us are going to be in Tampa, Florida, at the Gasparilla Power Festival. Hopefully considerably warmer, but 300,000 people in one day then on Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. And then, of course, the following week is the Super Bowl outreach, February 6 to 9 in New Orleans. We still got space. We're staying at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and so that they've got some extra space this year. We don't always have this kind of liberty, if you will, to add people to the end. But if you want to go, let me know, 423-724-7500. Send me a message. We'll get you connected and get you down there. We've got a couple of charter buses to run us back and forth from the seminary to downtown. So it should be a pretty smooth operation, as smooth as these things go. So come out and join us. Today we've got Rick Garland to talk with Rick, who is a new pastor. He's been there a couple of years, I think, at First Baptist Church in Lomita, California, a seasoned evangelist and old friends. Let's look forward to talking to Rick today. Rick, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So catch us up. How long have you been a pastor at the church?
2.5 years now.
And so what's been your experience? Has it been what you wanted it to be? Has it been different?
It's been very different than I thought it would be. That's not a bad thing. It's just it's not when you're not in the pastoral office. You look at it. You have ideas, and I've definitely learned that all of my ideas were wrong. So it's definitely a growing thing. But I mean, I am where I believe God led me to be. So that's the joy I take out of that, is that even though there's some hard times and some learning to go through, as long as you know with confidence you're on the path God put you on, I think it makes it a little bit easier to deal with it.
Well, I do remember, I don't know what we were doing, that we were in Los Angeles driving around, going somewhere, and you were talking about going and preaching there and all that. So I was there I wasn't the only one, of course, but with you before you went there. So what have you learned that you really was so surprising? Like the guys like us who think we know it all, what is it that you've learned that you need to teach us to about the position?
Wow. I can sympathize more with the Apostle Paul and some of the stuff he said, like all men seek their own, not the things that are Jesus Christ's. That's I can kind of relate to that. It's sometimes it's a battle over things that there shouldn't be a battle over, with people that you think are godly people who have their own agendas, their own minds, their own wills, and I would say that I've definitely learned, if I'm ever not in a position where I'm a pastor, I've learned to pray more for the pastor. There's a lot of hardship. There's a lot of betrayal. There's a lot of things that go on day to day that we just don't see when we're just sitting in the pew, if we're not in that position, and that he's not privy to share with other people. So you can't even know that he's going through those things, and I would say that's the biggest thing I've learned, is that it's very, self-will is very prominent within the church, and that pastors are dealing with things that you would never imagine they're dealing with. And I've learned to be a lot more patient with other pastors.
Okay. So I'm not trying to ask you to reveal secrets, but is the problem, so to speak, within sin, within man, or is it within the way churches not operate, but there is a way all churches kind of operate, bringing people together, the way everything goes on? What stimulates most of that self-will from your perspective?
It's hard to say. But I think I keep saying it in the pulpit. The church is too much of a business today, and it's too business oriented. It's not family. It's not the coming together we see in the New Testament. For in a lot of people's minds, it's business. It's vying for position and vying for authority and vying for control, and A lot of it's just operational stuff, but we look at the church too much like a business. And I understand there's a business aspect to church. There's IRS filings, and there's constitutions and legalities you have to go through. But for the most part, we've got to break ourselves to this idea the church is just a big corporate body that we're all vying for a higher position on the board of directors of. It's just I think that hurts the church when people are competing for position when we forget that we're all servants of the one who's the head of the church.
That's a good point. Is the competition? I'm sure it's a both end, but both on a local level and also if you're in a denomination like an SBC or PC or something, also the corporate realm as well. It's a little bit of both. What dominates that drive?
Yeah, I mean, we're not part of a denomination, so I couldn't speak to that. Just, I don't know, just tradition within the church. I think people have their own view of how a church should be. And rather than submitting to the scriptures or submitting to the lordship of Christ, it's easy to get caught up. You see it with open air preaching too. I mean, I've seen it just the years I've been involved in open air preaching. Just whether it's guys vying for I'm more this than you, or I'm more this than you, I'm more expository, I'm more reformed. It's just a lot of almost like pecking order, trying to put down one another rather than lift one another up. Whereas Paul said, consider others better than yourself. We're just too quick to criticize and put down one another, trying to get ourselves in a better position to be the next team leader or be the next deacon of the church or be the next, it applies just beyond the church. It's really opened my eyes to just the whole Christian experience of this is not the way that the apostles were meant to do ministry. Like they were about lifting one another up and putting others first. Like, no, man, I shouldn't be doing that. He's a better team leader than I am. He's a better preacher than I am. I wish I could preach like that guy. And I got caught up in that stuff for a long time. And it's just the more I'm sitting in this position here, the more I'm shaking my head like, what was wrong with me? What's wrong with all of us? What does the Bible say about this stuff, And so it's matured my Christian life a lot to just think less of myself and to see my own faults. As a pastor, fortunately, you have a group of people who are always ready to point out your faults. But
that's pretty good.
Normally, I'm ahead of them, and I already understand those things. But it's just, I think whether it's church or open air preaching or any kind of ministry, we all just need to grow up. We need to grow up and realize that we fall way short of the standard of the New Testament, and we need to try to get back to that. I think. Not everybody. There are some. I don't want to call out names, but I mean, I see some guys that I know from like Super Bowl that I'll watch them on social media, and they are so quick to humble themselves or apologize or whatever. But it's like for the vast majority, there's just a lot of digging in our heels and trying to fight with one another, and we're supposed to be peacemakers, not warmongers, And I keep trying to get that across to people just in day-to-day life. It's like seek peace as far as possible. Stand for the truth, be bold, but don't be the kind of person that is always looking for a fight.
Yeah, Facebook is a pot for strife. It is.
It's a great tool for ministry, but it has brought out the worst in the church, I think.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Well, that's interesting. So you've learned these lessons. How, certainly in our journey here, I think we probably agree that the journey, in a sense, part of the journey is growing and learning. That's part of it. So as you've grown and learned, have you seen a more fruitfulness in the body? How is that as you've grown in grace? Let's say it that way. How is that shown amongst your congregation there? How have you seen it? How has it seen it take effect?
Well, I definitely see it. It comes out some in preaching, I guess. I've learned an important lesson is no one listens to your preaching. They listen for what they want to hear out of your preaching. But in those one-on-one moments, those counseling moments, those moments where we're praying together, I'm able to get face-to-face with people. I'm able to express these things directly and bring scripture to bear on these kind of like how we're to act towards one another, how we're to treat one another. and from those conversations, I see the most fruit.
Gotcha.
Where people are confronted directly with, here's what the Bible says, here's how we should think about this, and I do see fruit bearing from those things.
What about I was going to say, so you have this experience, the way it sounds, the way you say it, I'm not saying you're saying this, but it sounds like, okay, you have a handle on the reality of church life, shall we say. Mm-hmm. All right, so do you now ascribe to having a larger church since you understand how you're ultimately going to minister to people, or do you ascribe to a smaller church, or church size? What is your sort of a goal in that realm? Obviously what God brings, but just for the sake of discussion, what do you think is a good sized church based on what you're saying?
I mean, you can't it's hard to put a number on it. If you have a church so large, the pastor doesn't know everybody, you don't really have a church, that's part of the problem. In the New Testament, they met in homes. I don't imagine they had homes big enough to accommodate 1,000 people. I mean, I've told our church, our church seats comfortably about 60, 65 people. And if we ever maxed out our church, and my goal is not to tear down and build a bigger building. My goal is to send people out to start another church, So I think based on where God put you, the room you have, we don't need to tear down and build bigger barns. We need to just send more people out into the world to start. So I've come to really appreciate the small fellowships of the church, and I have no vision to grow a mega church here. My vision is just what the Lord gives us, and He gives us more than we can fit in the building. We send people out to start another fellowship,
So how many times you have to answer this question have you woken up and said, I can't take it anymore?
Oh my goodness. I've had at least 30 times where I've seriously considered stepping aside.
Really?
About 30 times, yeah. But I'm confident the Lord has not led me that direction. That's my own feelings. And so I tuck them away at that point. But yeah, the thought does come up.
So flipping around, since I've seen the building where you're at, you're kind of in a community. It looks like,
Mm-hmm.
At least for the way California's laid out. So on the flip side, now you're a pastor in Lomita. Have you been able to get out and about and say, hey, I'm the pastor at Lomita Baptist Church? And, in other words, interact in the community. What positives have you gotten as a pastor that you don't get as a open air preacher? Let's ask it like that.
I don't know if we. I mean, obviously, I get out in the community and stuff, and we do evangelism. We get out. I don't introduce myself as the pastor of the church usually. We do get positive response from, like, when we're out doing evangelism, when people can say, hey, our pastor's out here with us, and we do get positive response from that, because a lot of pastors don't go out and do that kind of thing. And so at least people know that, the people who are out there doing evangelism aren't just out there, on their own, that the church is actually leading them out there. And we have a new family's been coming. They came from our open air evangelism.
Really?
They met us out of the park. Yeah. So we actually, I would say we have probably 10 people in our church who came from open air ministry of some kind. So we've reached a lot of people from that ministry. And so
your open air ministry, I know you go different places, but is it primarily located in a close area to the church?
Yeah. Primarily, we there's a park that's in the next town over we go to. That's a very busy park. We preach there on Saturdays. There's probably 500 or 600 people around the park. There's a farmer's market there. We preach there. And then, of course, we preach the USC games and other games around the area. The Santa Monica Pier is only about 15 minutes away, 15 miles away. So we do, I would say within 20 miles of the church is where we do most of our evangelism.
What is that beach up there between you and the pier? I know it's on the coast on the left side. If you're going north to Santa Monica Pier, it's on the left. That kind of eccentric place. What's that called?
Well, the beach right next to us is Redondo Beach.
Okay, what's the one a little bit further north?
You have Redondo, you have Hermosa, you have Manhattan Beach. Those are all like back to back.
Okay.
and then I think after that you come to Venice, and then
Venice
Santa
Beach,
Monica.
yeah, Venice. You ever go up there?
No, typically if we go up there, we go to the Santa Monica Pier because there's just so many people there.
Okay.
Venice, you do get some crowds, but never as much as you get as the pier.
Gotcha.
It's just if we're going that far out, it's just too tempting not to go to the pier where there's such huge crowds most of the time.
Does anybody from the pier come down to the church?
I don't think we've ever had anybody from the pier come. Not from that pier. We have from Redondo Beach Pier.
Okay.
We've had people come who got a tract from us at that pier. Yeah.
What is the most unexpected joy, if you will, of pastoring the church that you did not anticipate?
Seeing people take a message. Well, I said it. Well, there's probably two. Seeing people take a message that you've given them, or whether in a sermon or in a counseling session, and when they apply it to their life, and you see a real change, they begin to change how they think about their decision making, their reactions, that kind of thing. When you see that fruit bearing out in their life, and they come back and they're more joyful and they're more happy in the Lord. There's that aspect, and then we had 3 saved last year who weren't saved like in our services, but they were coming to our church, and God just gloriously reached down and saved them. And to see the change in their lives that's come over them, it's just it's a joy you don't get. I mean, obviously in the whole church, everyone probably rejoices over it, but for having known them before that point as a pastor, I look at them now. I had one girl who came to our church for the whole time I've been here, and every time I preached, it was just not dirty looks, but just this wall. But I could tell that as I'm preaching, she's receiving none of it, But then God saves her at home, and she comes in with a profession of faith, and I mean, since then she's soaking up the word, and to see the joy in her face, the smile on her face during the service, to see her there all the time listening to the word and taking notes, and it's such a joy to see that change.
That's cool. So if you were standing before 1,000 guys and try to make an appeal to them to, become a pastor, what would you tell them is a couple of main reasons?
Reasons to become a pastor.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. If the Lord is leading them in that direction, the joys outweigh the sorrow. There's great sorrow in pastoring. There's great annoyance. There's great burdens that you carry. But I feel like the moments of joy that come out of it outweigh all of that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I can say. I've never thought about reasons to be a pastor, because I never really wanted to be a pastor until about a year before this opened up. The Lord put it in my heart the desire to become one. And before that, I never really desired it. But yeah, I guess I would just say, just for the joys of the Lord, and for your own personal growth, you're going to grow in this position more than you will in any other position, I believe. It's just there are you're going to learn that you don't know half of what you think you know. And that's been the biggest thing for me. One of the biggest joys for me is realizing I know so much less than I thought I did, and I need to learn. And it's humbled me, and it's made me truly appreciate the power of the Holy Spirit to teach us what we need to know.
When you say learn, you mean like learn about people, learn about the scriptures? But what do you mean learn?
To learn about the scriptures, to learn about, I knew the Bible. I could preach the Bible, but I've learned in a new and real way how to apply the scriptures to everyday life in ways I never thought of before. Because I have people coming to me with problems, concerns, arguments, complaints, and it's given me a chance now to take the Bible and apply it to everyday life like I've never had thought of before.
Has Amy enjoyed you being a pastor?
You'd have to ask her. I think she has. I think she's never voiced any displeasure in it or anything. I think she has.
Well, that's pretty neat. All right, last question on that. So, if you were to stand, like let's say you're at the Super Bowl and say you got a word of, let's just call it exhortation to all the guys out there, and you're trying to give them a heads up on having a new attitude about pastors, what are a couple things that you would tell them?
Be gracious to your pastor. I mean, I am a street preaching pastor. I understand that, and some people get frustrated their pastors aren't out street preaching. But be gracious. They may not know much about that. It takes time to learn things. They may be busy. There's times I would just people criticize. Why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? Well, I got a list of things to do. If you want to come take some of my list and help me do it, don't criticize. Come alongside. Maybe he just needs some help, some encouragement, some teaching on that. So be gracious to the pastor. Be faithful. I've honestly I've had services where I worked hard on a sermon, and 4 people came to hear it, or 3 people came to hear it one time, and that gets discouraging. So be there, be present, make church a priority. Don't, so yeah, be gracious, be present, and pray for him, because there are so many just demonic attacks of the pastor that I'm ashamed how little I prayed for my pastors and how much I criticized them before actually being in this position now, where I wish I could go back and pray for them more. That'd be probably my 3 words of exhortation.
You made me think of something. So if you go into 1 Timothy 3 and you look at the qualifications for an elder and so forth, how applicable are they ultimately to the work of the pastor? In other words, are they just like, I know they are applicable, but are they definitive to your work? Do they actually describe the work that you really engage in?
They do.
How do those?
No, they describe the work, because each of the qualifications is going to apply to something that you're going to face within the position. That's why the qualification's there, because if you're given to fighting and arguing, you're not going to be able to bring peace between factions. If your household is out of control, you're not going to apply discipline, within the church where it needs to be. And so I think I think all of the qualifications are there because those are all things you're going to face, and you have to react a certain way to those things. And those qualifications are there to give us guidelines by which we're to respond to the things that we face.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good to hear. That's really helpful. Hospitality, you find that being apt to teach and hospitable seem to stand out in that whole list. I don't know why for me. Do you find those to be very, obviously apt to teach is important, but the hospitality part, being welcoming, these things, do you find that to be very much of a part of the work? Is it hard to be that for you?
Yeah, it's a little out of my comfort. So I'm not really a people person. You give me a large crowd or a large room, I like to just kind of sit by myself and watch things, So as a pastor, you have to be hospitable. You have to be able to greet people, welcome them, meet their needs, see if they have any needs, invite them into your home, spend time, have meals with them, So that's that I think is a big part of, as well as like visiting preachers. You got to be able to bring people through and be hospitable. One thing we're right now we're revamping our church constitution, and one thing I wanted to put in there, I told our board I want to put in there, is because I was a traveling preacher for a time, and I remember going to churches and they put you up in a hotel and it was so impersonal. And hospitality is not just a trait of a pastor, but it's a trait of the Christian life, And so we're putting in our constitution that a hotel is a last effort. The first place we look for when there's a visiting preacher coming through, we want to take them into our homes. We want to have meals with them. We want to share fellowship with them. That's just part and parcel of the Christian life. We should be hospitable to one another. We should do good to one another.
Cool. That's good work. Good work. Well, good job, Rick. Thank you. Let's talk for a second about the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yes.
Like y'all had a good time last year. Describe what went on, and was it busy? Just give us a little rundown on the whole scene.
Yeah, it was sketchy because it was our first time doing it. We didn't exactly know where to set up, where to park, what times would be good. So we were kind of feeling our way in the dark a little bit with it, which I expected since we never actually been there for it. But it went really well, I feel like. The only thing I didn't like was that we were kind of disconnected. I had guys staying in a hotel, and then I was staying here at the church, and so I'm really considering getting like an Airbnb this time where we can just stay together, because I really want to enhance the fellowship of it. You know, not just we get together in the morning, pray, and then go out there, and then afterwards we part ways. I want us to be able to spend time together afterwards and have that fellowship that like we have at Super Bowl or other outreaches like that. I felt it was too disconnected last year.
Were there a lot of fans there? Did you ultimately see a lot of fans out there?
There was, yeah. Sunday was the busiest day, I think, but Friday and Saturday were really good. I think I'm going to extend it to. There's also qualifying that goes on Thursday. I found out, so I'm going to extend it to Thursday this week. Go out there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
I think there'll be fan. It's right in downtown Long Beach. There's great crowds there, but we did find great places to set up right next to. There's two gates that go into the facility, and we were. There's only a couple of us, so we were set up at one gate. But if we had a bigger group, we could actually be set up at both gates. On Sunday, I believe, we were at both gates, and the city has no like restrictions on amplification, and we were in a little park. It was right next to basically a grass area right next to the sidewalk. So we had a great area to set up and just point our speakers towards the gate and just preach that way.
Cool. How many guys would you like to be there ideally?
5 to 10.
Five
I
to
think
10.
we could. I think 5 to 10 would be a good number between both gates. We had a couple guys that came like one day and then not the other, and a couple of local guys. But if we had 5 to 10 dedicated guys who were there for the full time, we could cover both gates for the whole day.
To like we talked about earlier about your house having mission beds in there. What would be the length of time to get that all built out?
Oh, if we had the money to do it, I mean, we got contractors that are in the church, and we could probably have it done in a month's time.
Oh, really? That fast?
Yeah, yeah, if we have the money to do it. Yeah, it's really not a lot of work. Just tearing out flooring, putting down new flooring, painting the walls, putting in light fixtures, putting in beds, and that. It's really not too difficult.
So Long Beach, that is in Orange County. That's the next county south.
Yeah, but we're right at the southern end of LA County. So from the church, it's about a 10-minute drive to where the Grand Prix is held.
That's all. Okay, that's
Yeah,
you're that close. Okay.
we just get on the bridge just past our church, and then you're in Long Beach, and then it's just down the street there. So it's about a traffic 10-15 minute drive from the church.
And so you're right there by relatively close to LAX, right?
Yes, yeah, it's about a 10-15 minute drive if you're going north to get to LAX.
So you're due south of LAX, and then Long Beach is south of there if you came into town. And
Right.
what part of town would you want to get an Airbnb in? Right there in Long Beach or Lomita? Where would it be?
I have to look at the prices, but probably Long Beach might be a little bit cheaper
Okay.
for the Airbnb for the option. I need to look at the options. I've really recently just started thinking about that. Last couple of weeks, I was thinking about how I don't want us to be all disconnected in where we're staying. I want us to be able to share fellowship with one another. And that's one of the nice things about these evangelism trips is that you get fellowship. You know.
That's the best part. Tell us about, so you've been at it 2.5 years there preaching. And so just share a little bit, because Los Angeles is certainly not your normal area, Los Angeles County, 8 or 9, 10 million people. How's it been at the USC stadiums and other places you've gone consistently? Describe responses.
USC is phenomenal. This is our second year now preaching at USC, and the crowds. This last year they had the earlier the game, the bigger the crowds. So like not this last year we just finished, but the year before that, most of the games were at like 6-7 p.m. So but this year almost all the games were at noon, 1 o'clock, and so we had really really big crowds. we have no problem from law enforcement there. They are. One time we were playing hymns while we were passing out tracts, and they actually came over and asked us to turn the music up louder.
Praise the Lord, huh?
They
That's
said that
awesome.
while the hymns were playing, people were less likely to, or people were causing less problems in that area while the hymns were playing. So yeah, so that's been tremendous there. And what's funny is we'll go there, and USC is maybe a 20-minute drive from the church, and we'll give out tracts and meet people who live in the neighborhood around the church that you don't
Really?
expect to meet out there,
That's cool.
And then but LA has just got there's just no end of opportunities here to preach. I mean, if you talk about Hollywood Boulevard or Santa Monica Pier, but then you go into USC games, you have Laker games, which are just about 20 minutes from the church as well, 25 minutes from the church. You've got the Clippers are building a new stadium actually closer to our church. They'll be about 10, 15 minutes away once it gets built for the Clippers. And then, then just all the different events that go on around town. We went to the Hollywood Christmas parade this year. 100,000 people gathered for that. And
Wow.
we're preaching and passing out tracts down there. And there's just so many different events. The Grand Prix, of course, in Long Beach. Just so many different events that go on around just LA, Orange County area that we have a couple guys in our church go down to Disneyland a couple times a week and preach to the crowds that are arriving at Disneyland. It's only about 20 minutes from our church. So the place that God's put us is just there's so many. There's no you could be here and be street preaching every single day.
That's amazing.
And not be in the same place twice. It's just
amazing.
There's so much to do.
Are you close to the transit? The train?
I mean, there's a train station maybe a few minutes from the church.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it goes. I know there's one that goes to Long Beach. There's one that goes like towards downtown LA. So they kind of go different places, but we're not too far from it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's pretty amazing. Do you see any other preachers out there?
Oh yeah, all the time. We'll come across people we don't know. They're just from other churches who are out either preaching or just passing out tracts. We'll meet them from time to time. Yeah.
That's so cool. Awesome. How the fire thing? I have no idea what's happening with the fire. Is that close to you?
Yeah, it's real funny. The closest fire to us was Palisades. That's about 20 miles away.
Okay.
But it burned north, and we're south. So in our little corner of LA, you wouldn't even know there's any kind of catastrophe going on because it's just business as usual. The first 2 days we had some smoke and kind of an orange haze, and then the wind shifted. But for the most part, it's not bothered us at all. I mean, except for the news and social media, I would never know what's going on. We're right by the ocean. Our church is like 5 miles from the ocean, so the wind blows a lot of that smoke out to sea and out of our area. So that's the clean air quality where we're at is a real plus to where we live.
That's gotcha. That's interesting. If you turn on the news, you think those cities on fire and buildings burning, but it's interesting.
Oh yeah. You watch the news and you just feel like all of LA is burned down, and like I said, in our area over here, it's just it's like business as usual. Like nothing's even going on.
Gotcha. Cool.
It's a very surreal feeling sometimes when you have that.
Well, that's cool. So the Long Beach is what are the dates on the Grand Prix?
I should have gotten those. I don't have them in front of me.
It's probably
you
on
have
the
them
banner here. We'll look it up. I think it's in April, the end of April, 24, 26, I think is what it is.
It was the end of April last year, so that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So look for 5 or 10 guys to be there. So we'll talk about the Airbnb stuff. But
yeah. So actually, you said 20. If it's 24, 26, make it 23 to 26 because I plan on going Thursday as well for the qualifying because there are crowds out there. I was told on that day.
Okay.
I don't want to waste any of the good crowds. So
cool. All right, Rick. Anything else you want to share?
No. If people they have the time and can come down here, whatever you and I come to on that, we'll have a place for them to stay. 5, 10 guys. There's a lot of freedom in Long Beach to preach. The Grand Prix, we never had any problem with the police last year. We had very few hecklers. It was a lot of liberty there to preach. And over the course of the couple days, the Grand Prix, you're going to preach to probably I'd say somewhere around 60, 70,000 people.
Yes.
Then that's just the ones going to the Grand Prix. Now, where we set up at on Thursday, Friday, especially, right across the street from us are all these big, giant office buildings and hotels, and they can hear the horn, going. So you're preaching to probably thousands you don't even realize you're preaching to, who are hearing this, and then it kind of echoes through downtown Long Beach a little bit because it catches those buildings and it's carried down the street quite a few blocks. So, yeah, you're preaching to a lot of people. I would say if you haven't come out, it's good weather. I can see you a picture of Andy Schmelter sleeping last year.
The lazy evangelist.
Got a good nap in the sun,
Yeah.
But we're gonna have good fellowship. We're gonna have time of prayer together, and we're gonna be able to preach to these crowds and give the gospel of Christ. And that's the best thing ever.
Cool. Okay, Rick. Well, great. Thanks for being on here today. Look forward to talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Good work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
All right.
Yeah, oddly enough, we went out for the talking about LA evangelism in LA. If you've never been out there, we did the Super Bowl out there a couple of years ago, and it was really during the COVID year. I guess 2020. I lose the track of time. 21 after 20, and the fall of 21, and so you saw those crazy stories come out of California, and just imagine when we got out there that it'd just be a zoo, but it was normal. Actually, people were normal. They were just. We went for this team leader training Labor Day weekend. We went down and preached at the USC Stadium, the Coliseum, and it was no big deal for people. The one guy that got some flack was Ben Cohen. Ben, some LSU fan, they were playing out at the Rose Bowl that weekend, got mad at him about something. So it wasn't even a California that got mad. So California people, all right, what I noticed being out there a couple times, are pretty easygoing about everything. So for better or for worse, so it's not a hostile environment. I like that, and it's good for gospel preaching. Plus, you've got these other places like Rick mentioned, the Santa Monica Pier, the beaches, the Hollywood Boulevard, Crypto Arena, other places. It's just chock full of opportunities. So I would certainly encourage you to get Los Angeles and Rick Garland, First Baptist Lomita, on your calendar. Move there. He probably let you stay at the church for a while. So sorry about that. And just start preaching there, man. It has 9 or 10 million people. There's more people in LA County than there are in my state of Tennessee. Hey, listen, friends, thanks for tuning in.